Welcome to another edition of Practical Pet Chat, but this is the business edition. That's right. With Lorin and I having so many friends in the industry and having worked alongside so many of you for so many years, we get a lot of questions. And one of the feedback we got was love for you to do some more industry specific, industry centric topics and information. And we thought, wow, that's a great idea. Let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to break this type of thing out. We're going to do this weekly, release it separately than our regular Practical Pet Chat. But I want to start off by saying thank you all for being here and send us your questions. Yes, we're a part of many of the groups. Some of you have our phone numbers. But if you could do us the favor of sending us your questions and your topics, really want to take this time and this opportunity to dive deeper about industry specific things that impact you, your business, your clientele, where things are going. You can do that at practicalpetchat@gmail.com. Lorin, I'm going to take a breath here. That was almost as long as I've been in the pet industry. I think that was what, 22 intro. But you have really seen a lot of change throughout all of this. And you and I have been on different sides of it, even though we've crossed over, we've worked together in different things. One question for today that I want to make sure you and I jump on is the pressures, the maybe misunderstanding of the direct to consumer competition that is happening for a lot of our retailer friends as well as our vendor friends. So maybe give a little bit of how you approached this, because you've seen the evolution. You were here before that was the pathway, so was I, but now it seems to be a common question you and I get. How do I compete? How do I adjust? How do I with these online opportunities and pressures that I'm feeling in my business?
Yeah, it's a normal thing to instantly have a negative reaction to competition. Because every time there's more competition, you feel like there's another potentially lost opportunity. I think perspective really affects that more than it actually having a negative effect. I didn't really care about that. What I cared about was, can I compete? And early on, Amazon was there, but wasn't really affecting. And they were the online player of the time frame. Now, oh my gosh, everybody is online. Everybody is either selling on other platforms, multiple platforms, has their own platform. They're selling direct to consumer. You can't be on any social media that you don't see 50 different foods pop up with, direct to consumer. I always love when they have those and I click on them and I have to fill out this whole questionnaire and information before they're going to tell me anything. So I'm automatically out. Because
Exactly.
if I
Exactly. Tip
can't
number
get
one.
information,
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
before you try to mine all my information, I'm out.
Yeah.
So I love that. That was always like, yes, that's good for the retailer. Um, at the same time, all of those people have businesses, those pet foods or those pet products, and they're trying to grow their own businesses as well. So I feel for them along those lines. I can remember you calling me expecting me to have a meltdown about the line of products you were representing because they were going to go to a large online platform. And you just
Yeah.
knew. Matter of fact, you got into the whole conversation with this explanation, this lengthy explanation of how this was happening and why. And I was like, oh my God, what are we talking about here? And you tell me, and I said, oh, well, that's perfectly understandable. And there was silence on your end because you couldn't believe I didn't have a meltdown as a retailer of your line. And it's like, well, you have to do what you have to do to grow your line. And I get that.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah. Well,
remember,
and I love that you bring that up, and because I still have nightmares, and my therapist thanks you. Um, the no, and so just a little bit of context for folks. Um, uh, had a part ownership in it and all the rest of that, and there were and always are as a vendor certain relationships that you really hold golden and you keep those things in perspective when you're plotting out, well, if we do this, what's the impact across the board? And I have to say that you described it perfectly. I was um, not looking forward to the conversation, not because it wasn't something that had to happen or it wasn't something that was going to benefit the business. And in our opinion, and as a vendor where I came down, which is why I'm sharing this context, is this was going to uh, provide solutions to many more beings than we had the opportunity to do. And so it was the right business decision. It did not make it a easy business decision. And having conversations with folks like you and several others made it. And what was very interesting is your reaction was very gracious, very understanding, and showed, by the way, your complete understanding of where the industry was, is, etc. There were some folks who dug in and just said, then we're out.
right?
And in fairness to them, they had to, and I said that to them. And you're right. It's kind of one of those where you wish you could just call up and say, hey, listen, we have this opportunity. We're going to take advantage of the opportunity. We've been working hard towards these types of things. How can we make it right with you who have been supporting us where we have been in and we want to continue being in? Not everybody has that grace, though. And I think that's a lesson for a lot of folks as they try and navigate this. Change is going to happen. There are going to be decisions that the vendors make that may not work for you, and that's okay for all parties. You just got to say it.
Well, I think where a lot of uh, retailers have issue with it is because, as we talked about before, everything gets built on the back of independence before it goes into the bigger boxes and the, bigger or multitudinous footprints that we feel minimize our impact. And I think that it's being looked at wrong. I get it. I completely get it. I get that viewpoint. I understand it. I also, because I've owned a number of businesses in my life, know what it's like to try to grow a business and you do what you have to do. Everybody needs to do what's right for their business. But your choice is either to have a process that you're comfortable putting forward to that vendor or get out.
Right.
Because my thing to you was, how are you going to make me competitive? And are you
Yeah.
going to push people to me in my area first before I'm like, people are going to shop where they want to shop. And because I have a Facebook group where I have people all over from all over the United States, Canada, and other countries that are in that group, it's important to me that people be able to get the things that are good for their animals. So there has to be online, right? Because some people
Right.
live in the middle of nowhere or don't have the kind of stores that are going to carry those kinds of products. And what I care about is that they get them. So it very much becomes let me look at this differently. I need people to be able to get this for their animal to be healthy. They could get it from me as a retailer because I shipped, or they could go online. Make me competitive. Make it worth it for people to buy it from me. Make it worth it for them to come to me first before they look automatically to go online. But be online for those people who can't get it. That's a win-win. I personally think that's a win-win. It has never affected me in the negative. I probably can't say never. I'm sure it has, but to no great degree.
Right.
Because my business decisions were, if this doesn't work out, I'm out. I'm going to go a different way. I'm going to move on too. So that's the whole nature of business. You can't look at it as and I've been there. Early on, I got sucked into that. It's not right. It's not fair. I've spent so much time. There was a cat food brand, primarily cat food, that decided to go into big box. And the day they announced it, which was about 2 weeks after a trade show, the day they announced it, um, I could hear in the background the meeting breaking up because my rep was stepping outside the meeting to call me first.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm just going to come straight out and tell you. These are the kind of relationships you need to have where your contacts are respectful enough to call you to
Great
try to
call out.
figure this out. So she called me and oh, I had a meltdown. I
Yep.
hit the ceiling because probably 75 to 80% of my cat section was this brand. And I had a major meltdown because I had a big one of those big box stores less than a mile from me. I had their competitor, also a big box store, a mile and a quarter from me. And I was like, this is unbelievable. I am 75 to 80% your line in my cat section. And I had a big, healthy cat section, but they had a lot of lines. And I was and she took it like a champ because I was ranting. I really was. I was ranting. And what that was panic.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I going to do? Oh my God, I am now going to be out of the cat food business. And it was irrational, it was reactive, it was emotional. And that's why I understand when stores react that way. But you have to take a breath and take a step back and regroup. And she taught me from that point forward I never needed to do that again because she said, tell me what you need me to do to keep
Yeah. That's a good rep.
our line in
Yeah.
your store. And I said, you need to make me very competitive. And she said, I can do that. I said, I don't know that you can because I understand the buying power. She goes, I can do it. Not only did she, and she continued to, she had the support of her manager behind her to continue to do that because they knew the kind of store that we were and that kind of thing. And because of the relationship that we had created. So
Yeah.
that's again what it comes down to communication, good relationship. And from that point forward, my attitude was always, I don't care. I really didn't. You can do
Well,
all that.
and I remember, I know who you're talking about. And that was a shocking, and I will say, communication that you just pointed out, if you are going to make the claims, we're only going to be in independence, we're going to support the independent always, then you better do it. You better back that up. And
But lots
I
of them
think,
don't.
yeah, and that was the where I was struggling to find the right way to frame it. And they don't do it for a lot of reasons. And I think, as you just pointed out, having that communication and the right person, um, so important to be able to navigate these things because she understood, and so did her bosses. This is not just a business to you. This is a part of your being. And so when you're making commitments to your customers and your,
That
clients that, you know, hey, I understand that you made some decision over here in a boardroom or a meeting room, etc. But when I'm getting down on the floor and I'm talking to the real customer and consumer of the products that you're trying to sell me, I'm not doing that because I'm hoping you'll recognize that in the boardroom. I'm doing that because we have had communications that made me feel you can be a part of me and my passion for this space. So that's that. Boy, I remember that one in particular. That was one that I think hit a lot of people. I don't. I give
Yeah.
it that one did not.
You know,
That's we probably read a book about that one.
the
Uh,
thing that I heard that I've heard repeatedly, I sometimes feel like there must be some handbook somewhere for some of these manufacturers for the lines that they can say when they're having these conversations with their retailers. And I'm like, that crap ain't gonna work here. Um,
yeah,
it was oh, but the people who come to you are going to continue to come to you. I was like, time out. I was
yeah,
super angry about this. I said, so let's say I'm only a dog and cat store. Let's say that I don't sell something for bunnies or chickens or,
right,
whatever, a bearded dragon, whatever anybody else has. So they have to go to that store. Now, they may be coming to me for their dog and cat food, but they go to that store to get their food for their bearded dragon, or they go for their, bunny or
right
whatever.
tortoises.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they walk by and they see the sign
right,
for this particular food that they didn't used to have. And or they walk in, there's a huge pallet display in the front. And now, well, I'm here. I might as well
right,
get it here. Now
right.
you have directly affected me. So don't sit on the phone and tell me this bullshit that they're going to continue to come to me because they're in a place and it's like, well, I needed to go buy, but I'm here, so I might as well get it here. So
Yeah.
you need to find a way to continue to make me competitive so that I can offset these instances of this happening.
So what are some of the ways that you, as the store owner, approach that?
Well, I changed a lot of, that was a very sporadic thing. I mean, it happened and it happened quasi regularly, but not happen. It didn't happen to the degree that it, of course, happens now because there wasn't the direct to consumer that there is now.
Sure.
Um, but I got really well versed very quickly on anybody who wanted to bring a line in that I had some flat things that were not really negotiable for me. And I fortunately also had great distributor reps who would tell these brands, you want to be in this store,
Yeah.
and she does what she says. She's going to do everything she can to make this product successful. She's not going to bring it in just to bring it in and, dust it off every so often. I mean, we flip the store, we turn the store, the products in the store all the time. And people would say, I can't find it. Yes, I know. That's the point, because all the things that you don't see because you know exactly where this product is, so you don't take in anything around you because you're just going to that product. If I move the store around a lot, then you have to ask or you see other things that you could swear were not in here and must be new, but I've had for the last 6 months. Um, so my thing was always I need a guarantee of sell through. Always stand behind our products. Not what I said. I need a guarantee
And
of
so
sell
for
through.
those who maybe aren't familiar with that, explain that concept because I think that's important.
That means that this is a partnership. I'm going to do everything I can to move your product, and I'm going to do it fairly, responsibly, and honestly. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to sample it out. I'm going to promote it. I'm going to do all those things in addition to whatever you're doing. Um, and anything that expires, anything that doesn't move, anything that is poorly received, if you decide to change your ingredients and don't tell me, and I get the product in, and now there's an ingredient in it that I'm not comfortable with, you're going to pick the product up, and I'm going to get credit back to the distributor, or you're going to refund me. Those kinds of things. All of those things, I need that in writing. Interestingly, this was a normal thing back in the day. This guarantee of sell through. It was a very common automatic, and you'd get this if you were that kind of store, if you were the right kind of store that,
Sure.
the manufacturer turns around, of course, to the distributor and goes, and the distributor is like, or they go, yeah, definitely.
Right.
Um, the chain that I worked for here, the response that I got from a couple of manufacturers when I said I need a guarantee at sell through, and they're like, what does that look like? I mean, we can't, I mean, if you don't sell it, we can't get, I'm like, timeout. I'm happy to put this in writing back and forth in an email, not a problem. But actually, a brand in particular, the distributor who has been in the industry a long time, this particular rep, had to get in the middle of it and go, this is not uncommon. And they said, well, nobody else has asked for it. And they said, so you're going to penalize her because she knows to ask for it because she's been in the industry for so long?
Right.
And we had to have several conversations where I said, I listen, this is not a, and they said, well, if I don't even remember the example they used. I'm trying to think of it now. And oh, they said, if you close a store, we can't be liable for that product. I go, well, I'm not asking you to be. If I close the store, I'm
Right.
going to take that product and I'm going to reallocate it to other stores. So we had to have a lot of conversation. This was a fairly young brand. So
Yeah.
it's not like they had
Well,
been
and
around a long time.
yeah, and I think to your point, that's where I was going to go with it, because from the vendor standpoint, manufacturer, et cetera, there what's interesting, and I want to give everybody out there, you're right. Lorin just said there's different ways that are done for everybody differently. Sometimes you can push back, other times you're happy to have the product, but you need to establish what works for you and your store. Same thing on the manufacturer side. There were places we would have loved to have been for different products that I was involved with that um ironically, I mean, I will tell you, we went into one of the biggest natural spaces, and it broke my heart because we went in with one product line and I knew it was our other product lines that really would have succeeded there
Right.
tenfold. But as a manufacturer, you have to, make these choices. Okay, we're going to get there. Hopefully, we're going to. And so as you're navigating, and then there were independent stores, and there were, even the online retailers is really interesting because you mentioned Amazon as we started off on this, and um, boy, show me someone who has had a universally awesome experience on any of these online platforms. And I will really have to, be proven. I might have to do shots on camera to accept that, because there is, it's hard. And the reason I bring that up is you said, how are you going to make me whole? How are you going to make me advantaged so that I can continue to compete and be the evangelist that I've been for your products?
That.
And that's the hard part, because it's so funny. It's like you almost have to be on some of these online platforms as a manufacturer and vendor before many stores, even independents, will take a look at you anyway, right?
Right.
And so this direct to consumer, the online platform, if you're some new product coming out now, you have to do these things. Um, but it's a double-edged sword. So I love that you said the communication back and forth.
Well,
You're not
that
you're
same.
not being unreasonable in what you're asking, but if you don't have any communication, everybody sounds unreasonable.
Right. Well, I had a guarantee of sell through with that particular cat food too. I had a 100% satisfaction at any point in time that I didn't want the food in my store any longer. They would pick it up and give me full credit. That was my guarantee of sell through.
Nice.
And they said, we can come pick it all up for you. And I lost my shit again because I'm like, you're 75 to 80% of my cat food section. You're
Right.
not listening to me. And she was listening to me. She just was like, she was trying to convey past my manic meltdown that I'm gonna do whatever it is you want me to do.
Right.
And it was like, well, right now I just want to have the meltdown because I'm so freaked out about this. But the other thing too is you asked what other things I would require. A couple of things that were important to me. Don't bring me an ISO and not be willing to write me a different ISO because I'm not going to be that store that will take 20 bags of something when especially if it's new or even if it's not new and I do well with it, I may not have the footprint for it. So write me an ISO off of the normal ISO, whether it's a trade show or anything else,
Yeah.
and let me start off smaller. And if I do really well with it, I'm not going to ask you to do it again. I know that I'm giving up the possibility of getting all this product at a reduced price. Never once have I had a manufacturer not come back and say, want to do it again? Because I didn't take as much to begin with. The other thing too is I offered and have signed NDAs for companies where I said, I need to know the sourcing of all of your ingredients, the true, legit, no BS sourcing of your ingredients, not the boutique front that you're using in France or anything like
Yeah.
that. I want to know what because I already know. So you might as well just tell me and I'll sign an NDA because here's how this is going to go. You, if you don't want to tell me, if you don't want to be transparent, you don't have to be. I'm not here to tell you how to run your business, but you're not going to tell me how to run mine either. And I need to know what's in your product because I need to be able to answer to people as well as you need to answer to people,
Yeah.
down the line. This isn't a blind thing for me. I need to know. And so, for example, people who would say, well, I don't want anything from China. Okay, this particular, you just need to know up front because I know
Right.
this, if this is going to be the hill that you're going to die on. This particular vitamin is only
Yeah.
done in China.
Yeah.
So I know you're going to hear differently. I know you're going to be told differently, and they're going to tell you that they get it from some place in France or, wherever they're going to tell you. But I'm just, you can look it up. You don't need to take my word for it, but it all comes from China. That doesn't necessarily make it bad. Not everything we do is great, but you need to know straight up. So if that's the hill you're going to die on, you need to go make your own food. And then what are you going to use for that supplement or that vitamin?
Right.
Because you're going to need to really balance that or make sure that your kid's getting enough or figure out how you're going to get that issue answered. Um, so I did sign NDAs because it was like, okay, I can work with that.
Right.
I just need to know what's in your product. That's all. And people trust me to start with. So if I'm comfortable and I understand it and you've been upfront with me, that's really all we can expect of each other. And in the meantime, an NDA means exactly that. For anybody who doesn't know, it's a non-disclosure agreement. I won't tell anybody what the secret sauce is, but I'm not going to lie to anybody either as far as, listen, if you don't want anything to come from that part of the country, we need to look elsewhere, you know?
Right. And I think, again, just bringing that, manufacturer, vendor side of things, um, there are certain entities I'd do that for, and there are others I'll be straight up, I wouldn't do that for. Heck, there's even organizations, trade organizations,
Yep.
I wouldn't do that for. It just, unfortunately, and you and I have been at the trade shows, and we see the folks walking around from other countries going, oh, that's a great idea for a product. We can knock that off 40% from what they're selling it.
Yep.
So, I want to give a little bit of grace. You got to answer the questions. Where are your ingredients coming from? How is it being manufactured?
That.
That's those things, those are important to know and understand. And in the right hands, that not only is a selling point, but that is a relationship solidifier.
It
And
is.
that is when it's right to do it. I will say there were a number of times where folks would be like, well, we want, the entire formulation of this or that. And I'd be like, yeah, nope, sorry.
You
You
don't
know,
need the formulation.
you don't need the formulation. You don't need to know where it's being, manufactured, if it's at our facility or if it's at some other facility, unless there are legitimate concerns, meaning, hey, what ingredients are you using from this country or that country? Where I'm looking at it sometimes is, I will say I was involved with a product that had a very unique manufacturing process. They were the only ones doing it. And sadly, what I will say is folks like you, that was legit. You had a legit reason for knowing, wanting to understand it, and would utilize it for the benefit of your customers. And others, they just wanted to know so that they could try and
Rip
get
it
in.
off. Right.
Yeah. And that's the hard part. It's the same thing with white labeling, which I know we'll do a separate episode on. But understand this:
Yeah, I love white labeling, by the way.
it comes back to relationships. When you called, and a number of folks, so many of you are probably listening to this because we're friends. Those conversations, I looked forward to those conversations because I knew there was a legitimate interest in not just the product, but the success of the product. And so if I'm giving you that information, I know you and your staffs were taking that for the benefit of the consumer, the pets, for the benefit of the client, the pet parents, and also for the benefit of me. It's one of those win-win-win. But if I don't have a relationship with you, I will say that the online space that has happened has also created, from a vendor and a manufacturer standpoint, skepticism and concern of just being as transparent as we were 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. We were, in this together. That has been degraded.
Oh my
Um,
God, there's way less transparency now than there ever
yeah,
was.
yeah.
Way less. And when you said people don't necessarily need to know where things are being manufactured, I don't agree with that. And the only reason I don't is because there is a particular manufacturer who's a co-packer. A lot of pet foods are co-packed. Very few pet
Yeah,
foods have their own manufacturing plants. So the vast majority of them are co-packed. It matters like crazy to me where they're
yeah,
co-packed. And if a food was being co-packed at a particular they also had their own food, but they did
yeah.
co-packing, it was a flat out no. And they'd say, well, we have people there and we're overseeing it. I'm like, I'm a no.
No, yeah. Well, and so just to clarify, by the way, absolutely, you should know where it's being manufactured. I'm not going to give you my contact at that place so
Oh
you can
no, of
call them up
course.
and
No, of
say,
course.
hey, we really love Rob's XYZ brand and we'd like to do it. We're willing to knock out 2 or 3 ingredients so that we've got 7 stores, or we've got, 20 independents that will all come together and sell this. And sadly, that stuff happens, and by the way, good co-manufacturer and co-packers will call. There are not a lot of good co-packers out there. I'm just going to say it.
Are you talking
There's
about pet
more.
food or are you talking about
I'm talking about
products?
across the board,
Okay.
across the board, because they've had to ramp up, and they have their own business pressures.
They do.
And once you get to, don't get me wrong, there are some phenomenal, and it's just like stores. I
Yeah,
want to work with the best. And to do that, I also got to make sure they're not getting peppered by every independent, idea idea person. Hey, I've got a blog and I can sell, 500,
sure.
a month. And that's what's transpired over these last several years. I mean, the pandemic, it was crazy. I'd get a call from some of these folks and they'd be like, did you get my number out? And no, not at all. Yeah, they referenced your product that they wanted to. And I'd be like, why would I do that? That only hurts our company.
Right.
And if I know this person that you're talking about, they have no deep knowledge to know the importance of the formulation. So they're going to drop out certain ingredients that are going to make it less effective. And now they're harming the body system, in my opinion. So, no. But those conversations on the manufacturer, co-packer side, et cetera, I will say I've been fortunate to be involved with some folks that do own their own manufacturing. I always love that, but that is also becoming less and less and less.
Yeah.
And but once you go to as a manufacturer and a co-packer, you've got your shift one. A lot of them get to that shift two, and then it's that hard transition to get to a shift three. So they're running
Right.
24/7. And that's when I see a lot of the movement of, all right, let's do some deals that maybe wouldn't have done previously. But I do agree with you. And by the way, I mean, there's a product you and I became deeply bonded over, which maybe we'll share at some point. But yeah, the manufacturing, that was, the minute someone say, we carry X, Y, and Z, and I'd say, oh, you carry one formulation that just has
Right.
9 different marketing labels on it. That's not a benefit to your customer or your end consumer. And they were shocked. They were shocked. So, no, I'm a big proponent of know where it's manufactured, but no, I'm not going to hand over my contact there so that you can call and try and rip off my.
Right. But it's interesting because there's most people aren't aware that things can be reverse formulated too. There is a
Oh,
place in
100%.
Riverside.
That
There's a
takes, yeah, that takes more time and effort
yeah,
than most people are willing to put into. But I do
yeah,
agree.
but I mean, I the conversations that I've had to have with a manufacturer or two over the years where they wouldn't tell me and I'd be like, listen, 30 minutes from my store is someplace that I can take your product and spend not really a great deal of money if I wanted to rip you off and make the product myself. In the grand
Right.
scheme of things, it would be pennies. And I can reverse formulate your product and know exactly what's in it, how much of it, all that kind of stuff. The problem becomes, and this is what happens on Amazon and some of the larger platforms when somebody gets their product knocked off. If I have people in the group that are in other parts of the country and they're going to buy the product on a big box site, my thing is always you want to go into that brand's store name who is selling their own product on there, because a third party seller, how do you know you're actually getting that? Box looks the
Right.
same, the product looks the same, maybe they reverse formulated
Yeah.
it and they're selling something like it, but then it comes down to where's the sourcing of the ingredients. Now it is no longer the same.
Right.
It's not the same duck that's walking, talking and that kind of thing. It's not the same duck. It's a duck that quacks, but it's just not the same, because where the product that you like is sourcing their ingredients and you've done all the homework and the time and about that, this knockoff product is sourcing. And to that point, a really good one that just came to mind was there was a particular co-packer that was co-packing for a couple of uh, I'm just going to say food brands. I'm not even going to say what kind of food. Um, and what was really interesting to me was finding out that the two brands being co-packed in the same place, the one brand was using what we would consider to be cast off product, like carrot tops instead of carrots, you know, um, those kinds of, things that maybe had gotten to the point of being mushy, sort of
Sure.
almost spoiled, where the other brand wasn't necessarily. And it was a matter of, it came down to cost. It came down to, and the people that are co-packing are like, we're just giving them what they're paying for, so
Right.
it's not really them to blame. But people hear that two brands are getting co-packed in the same place and they think, oh, well, they're both going to be great. Okay, there's a
Yeah.
reason this one costs so much more. It isn't.
Right. No, I 100% agree with you. I
Yeah.
want I want to dive deeper into that. I think that's important for folks to know and understand. But I do want to respect everybody's time out there.
Yep.
We know you're running a business, you've got a lot of things going on, so we want to keep these episodes a little bit shorter than our normal 7-hour rants that we do on our other
They're not
all
7 hours. Don't freak
yeah,
out.
they're not 7 hours. Okay. Um, no, we only record one of the 7 hours. But yeah, so thank you all for joining us on this. I think the bottom line, hopefully, everybody takes from this is there is absolutely a place for you, regardless of direct to consumer challenges, regardless of online challenges, regardless of the social media networks and all the rest of that. And I know, Lorin, you and I are going to dive into other ideas we have on this because there's a lot more I know we'd both love to share, and not just experiences, but things that we're advising folks to do that are reaching out to us right now. And speaking of that, if any of you want to reach out to us with any questions, again, we're not going to call you and answer them specifically.
Yep.
That's a different type of
But email us. Email
but
us.
email us your questions, the topics, the things that you've seen. Share a story. Love to share some of your own experiences. Practicalpetchat at gmail.com. You can find us on so many different social media networks. Ironic as I just said, there is a place for you. The degradation of we've got 75 different places you can find this, and it seems everybody uses one of those different ones. It's really amazing looking at analytics. And that's another topic Lorin and I will dive in soon. So Lorin, thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this, not just for me, but for the industry. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as, nor should it be construed as, professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment for your pets. Always seek the advice of a qualified veterinarian with any questions you may have regarding your pet's health or medical condition. Never disregard professional veterinary advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The hosts and the guests of this podcast are not liable for any actions taken based on the information shared during these episodes. Any reliance on the information provided is solely at your own risk. Copyright 2025 Practical Pet Chat, all rights reserved. Unauthorized duplication, distribution, or reproduction of any content from this podcast, including but not limited to audio, scripts, and show notes, is prohibited without prior written consent. The opinions and views expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Practical Pet Chat.